If you enjoy heartfelt Western romances with strong characters, slow-burning love, and stories that linger long after they end, don't forget to subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay with us on every new journey across the rugged heartland. Welcome to Westbound Hearts. Now, let's begin. The wind whispered low across the New Mexico plain, tugging at dry mesquite branches and stirring up curls of red dust. It was a lonely place, a hard place, a place that demanded more from a man than most could give. But Calder Hayes had stopped expecting Eve from life long ago. He stood beside the fence line, sleeves rolled up, a hammer dangling in one hand. The sun was dipping low, casting long amber shadows across the land. Sweat trickled down the back of his neck, and his eyes narrowed against the glare. He was repairing a busted gate, same as yesterday, same as the day before, always fixing, always watching. Alone. Then something moved near the creek. At first, he thought it was a coyote. But no, too still, too upright. A woman. She sat on a flat rock, arms wrapped around her knees. Her boots were gone, dress torn near the hem, face streaked with sweat and dirt. She looked like someone who'd been walking for days. Calder dropped the hammer and started toward her, boots crunching over dry earth. She flinched as he approached, but didn't run. "You hurt?" he asked. Her head lifted slowly. Her voice cracked. "No, just stopped." "You lost?" "No, just tired." His eyes lingered on her face, trying to read what her words wouldn't say. "This land ain't kind to strays." "I'm not a stray," she said quietly. "Just don't have a home right now." He hesitated, thumb hooked in his belt, considering. Then he offered a slow nod toward the trail. "Come on. I got water and a roof. You can rest. Tomorrow's another day." She stared at him like she was waiting for a catch, then rose unsteadily. "Thank you." At the ranch house, he handed her a glass of water and a clean rag. She washed her face at the basin, silent and guarded. He didn't press her with questions. Just said, "Room's out back. You can sleep there. You want to stay longer, you pull your weight." "I didn't come looking for kindness," she said. "Just a place where no one asks." "That's what I'm offering." The next morning, she was already up, sweeping the porch with a broken broom. He watched in the corral, arms folded. She moved like someone who was used to working, shoulders tense, movements precise. When she noticed him watching, she straightened. "Name's Lena," she said. "Calder." That was all. For a while, days folded into weeks. She stayed. At first, they spoke little. She cleaned, helped with meals, tended the chickens. He worked the cattle, rode the range. But slowly, the rhythm of two people sharing the same space started to hum. Not loud, not obvious, but there. She began taking her tea outside at night, sitting on the creaky old swing that swayed beneath the porch awning. Calder would sometimes join her, sitting in silence, watching the stars blink awake. One evening, he cleared his throat. "You always sit out here this late?" She sipped her tea. "The dark's quiet in the day." He nodded like he understood, because he did. She glanced sideways. "You live here alone?" 14 years. "Why?" He shrugged. "Ranch was my father's. His father's before that. After the war, I came back and just stayed. Never found much reason to leave." She nodded, her eyes distant. "Sometimes staying takes more strength than leaving." He looked at her then. Really looked. She wasn't young, not exactly. But there was something youthful in her, a softness in her jaw, a stubborn spark in her gaze. It pulled at something he thought he'd buried long ago. Then came the storm. The sky turned the color of bruised peaches, and thunder rolled like distant drums. Rain lashed the porch roof. Calder checked the windows, then lit a lantern as he passed the hallway. He found her curled up on the floor, shawl wrapped around her shoulders, face pale. He knelt beside her. "You all right?" She didn't answer right away. "I don't like thunder. Brings back things." Things. She looked up, and in the flicker of lantern light, her face seemed hollowed by memories. "I was married once. Man owed me more than loved me. Said I owed him for saving me. Said leaving made me ungrateful. So I ran. Been running ever since. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. But she saw something shift in his face. A tension released, like he understood more than he let on. You can stay, he said. No one's chasing you here. And no one's owning you. After that night, the silence between them wasn't just comfortable, it was shared, like they'd been speaking, without words, all along. In the mornings, she started saddling Bo before Calder even stepped outside. They rode the perimeter together, she learning to ride proper, he teaching her how to read the land. You ever think of leaving? She asked him once as they sat under the cottonwood tree by the watering hole. Sometimes, he said, but the quiet's all I know. The quiet used to scare me. Now I think it might be the only honest thing left. She smiled, and the wind tugged at her hair, carrying the scent of sage and something sweet Calder hadn't smelled in years. Hope. Later that week, she found him in the barn sorting through an old box. Letters, photographs, yellowed records. My mother's things, he said. She kept everything, even the feed receipts. Lena knelt beside him and picked up a faded picture, a boy in suspenders on a porch swing. Was that you? He nodded. You had a gentle face. He glanced at her. You still do. That night, as they sat outside, he handed her a folded piece of cloth. It was a scarf, blue and soft. My mother used to wear it. I thought maybe you'd like it. She touched it like it was made of air. No one's given me anything just to be kind in a long time. I ain't kind, he said. She smiled. That's the kindest part. As summer slid toward fall, the ranch began to change. Flowers she'd planted bloomed near the porch. He started coming in from the fields early, shaving more often. She made cornbread the way his mother used to. One morning, he found a fresh cup of coffee waiting on the porch swing. No words, just waiting. She'd been there 3 months when he finally asked, You ever think about going back? She shook her head. Back to what? My past ain't something I miss. But this place, it feels like breathing again. They stood together then, and he reached out slowly, gently brushing a lock of hair from her face. If you want to stay, he said, you're welcome. She looked at him a long while, then whispered, I already did. From then on, they shared more than silence. Hands brushed in the kitchen. Gazes lingered longer at dusk. She laughed once, a real laugh, and startled them both. He caught himself smiling at nothing, and she, humming softly while hanging laundry. Weeks later, Calder rode into town and came back with a small box in his coat pocket. That evening, as the sky blushed with the last light of day, he walked to where she sat on the swing. He knelt, awkwardly, slowly, and offered her the box. It ain't much, he said, but it's yours if you want it. Inside was a silver ring, plain, worn, but it caught the light like morning dew. My mother's, he added. She said if you ever find someone who makes the house feel like home again, you don't let her go. Lena's hands trembled as she took the ring. Tears welled in her eyes, but none fell. I'm not going anywhere, Calder. He slipped it onto her finger. The sun dipped behind the hills, and for the first time in years, Calder Hayes fell whole. They didn't need vows. Their story had been written in glances and silences, in work-worn hands and dust-heavy evenings, in everything that wasn't said, and everything that never needed to be. Now, if you rode past the Hayes ranch near sundown, you'd see them, 2 figures on the porch swing, close, steady, hearts beating in time with the desert wind. And you'd know, some loves don't come like lightning. They come like sunrise, slow, certain, and worth the wait. The autumn wind had turned colder. Mornings began with frost along the fence posts, and Lena had started wrapping herself in the old blue scarf Calder gave her, its edges frayed, but soft from use. It had been nearly 4 months since she first arrived at the Hayes Ranch. For months in silence had grown into safety, and safety into something neither of them had dared to name out loud. Calder woke each day before the sun, as he always had, but now, before pulling on his boots, he would glance over the other side of the bed, not to find it empty, but warm, Lena's breath soft in sleep. She brought life to the ranch in quiet ways. Fresh-baked bread on Sundays, fresh-cut flowers on the windowsill, the smell of lavender hanging in the air. The place, Once quiet like a tomb, now breathed again. But peace has a way of drawing trouble, like warmth draws the cold. It started with a horse, a lean chestnut gelding, untied, half-starved, wandered onto Calder's land just before dusk. The animal's flanks were scratched with fresh marks, whip marks. Its eyes wild. Calder and Lena watched from the porch as the creature paced nervously in the corral. "That's not a Mustang," Lena said softly. "No, that's a branded animal," Calder replied, jaw tightening. The brand on its haunch was unfamiliar, a rough double-X design, burnt deep. Calder saddled bow and rode the perimeter the next morning. About 3 miles out near Split Ridge, he found broken fence posts, not theirs, and tire tracks from a heavy wagon. When he returned, Lena was chopping onions on the porch table. "Something's wrong," he told her. "There's been people moving near the South Ridge. Someone's driving cattle through land that isn't theirs." She looked up, setting the knife down slowly. "Do you think they saw a ranch?" "Maybe." He rubbed the back of his neck. "We'll be careful." But the next night, just before dawn, Lena heard it, a rustle outside the barn. She shook Calder awake, heart racing. He grabbed the rifle from beside the door and crept out barefoot, breath misting in the cold. He found 2 figures by the barn wall, whispering low in a language he didn't recognize. Spanish or maybe something older. As he stepped into view, lantern raised, the men darted like rabbits. One fired a warning shot in the air. The other dropped a scrap of leather with the same XX brand burned into it. "They weren't stealing," Calder said after, sitting at the table with Lena. "They were sending a message." Lena placed a hand over his. "What kind of message?" "A claim. They posted extra locks." Calder rode out daily, checked the water line, walked the fence, kept his gun close. But the tension built, not just on a ranch. In Calder, too. He grew quiet, distant. Lena found him some nights out on the range, standing still under the stars like a man trying to decide where he belonged. "You're not alone in this," she told him one night as they sat beside the fire. "I know," he said, eyes on the flames. "But I've fought before, and every time I do, I lose something." "You didn't lose me," she whispered. He looked at her then, as if realizing that the thing he feared losing most was already inside the house, sitting across from him, waiting. One afternoon, while Calder was out checking the southern bluff, a rider approached the ranch. Lena stepped onto the porch with the old shotgun, shoulders squared. The man dismounted. He was tall, lean, with a hat pulled low and a scar beneath his chin. His coat was worn leather, stitched roughly at the sleeves. He didn't look surprised to see a woman holding a gun. "Name's Holt," he said. "Work for a man called Bishop. You've seen his mark, I reckon." Lena didn't lower the gun. "Mr. Bishop wants to buy this land. Says you've been squatting on it too long. Time someone put it to better use." "It's not for sale," Lena said evenly. Holt smirked. "It will be, one way or another." When Calder returned, Lena recounted every word. He stood for a long while by the window, hands clenched. "I've heard of Bishop," he muttered. "Runs cattle up from Texas. Pays men to clear land by any means." That night, Calder pulled a small chest from under the bed. Inside was a badge, tarnished and half-broken. "You were law?" Lena asked quietly. "Once, before the war, before I lost the taste for it. Do you still remember how to fight?" "I remember enough." They made a plan. Calder rode to town, filed a legal claim, spoke with the sheriff. A man too tired or too afraid to get involved. "Best you lie low," the sheriff warned. "Bishop's men don't play fair." But Calder wasn't lying low anymore. Back at the ranch, Lena prepared the house, barricaded doors, loaded shelves, filled lanterns. And that evening, as the sun burned low across the mesa, Calder sat beside her on the porch. "You don't have to stay through this," he said. "I didn't stay through peace just to leave in trouble." He looked at her, his hand reaching for hers. "If something happens—" She cut him off with a kiss. "If something happens, we face it together." The attack came at dawn 2 days later. 3 men on horseback, guns drawn. They shouted warnings. Calder fired a warning shot of his own. One rider circled toward the corral, another toward the water tower. Lena stood in the upstairs window with the rifle, eyes steady. She fired once, missed. The next shot clipped a rider's arm, sending him crashing to the dirt. Calder took down the second one with a shot to the leg. The third turned and fled, riding hard toward the east ridge. When the dust settled, Calder walked the yard in silence. Lena followed, heart pounding. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, barely breathing. "You." He pulled her into his arms, buried his face in her hair. "I am now." They never saw Bishop or his men again. Whether the law got involved or word just spread that the Hayes ranch wasn't worth the trouble, no one could say. Weeks passed. Winter rolled in with quiet snow. The nights grew longer, but inside their house, the fire always burned warm. One evening, as Lena folded laundry by the hearth, Calder came in, shaking snow from his coat. He walked over, handed her a folded piece of paper. She opened it, a deed in both their names. She looked up, stunned. "I didn't just want you safe," he said. "I wanted you home." She stepped into his arms. "I already was." They stood there as a fire popped gently behind them, two souls bound not by ceremony or law, but by every look, every silence, every danger faced side by side. The frontier was still vast, still wild, but for Calder and Lena, the quiet between storms had become a promise, and love, their unspoken vow.